Welcome to this exploration of one of humanity's most enduring and mysterious questions. What is the nature of love? Across centuries and cultures, love has been celebrated, dissected, feared, and worshipped. But how do we define it? Do we understand love as an emotion that overtakes us, a conscious choice we make, or a story we tell ourselves and others to give meaning to our lives? Philosophy, religion, and literature have all provided unique insights into this profound question. Plato, in his Symposium, describes love as a ladder of ascent. From physical attraction to the contemplation of ultimate beauty, Søren Kierkegaard, by contrast, emphasizes love as a commitment, a deliberate act of the will, where true love is sustained through responsibility and faithfulness. Simone de Beauvoir, in The Second Sex, critiques the myths surrounding romantic love and calls for an authentic partnership built on equality and freedom. Religious traditions also weigh heavily on this subject. Christianity teaches agape, the unconditional divine love that believers are called to mirror in their lives. Hinduism, through the Bhagavad Gita, presents bhakti, or devotion, as a transcendent form of love that connects human beings with the divine. Buddhism frames love as compassion, emphasizing a love that liberates rather than binds. In literature, Shakespeare's sonnets immortalize passion as both eternal and fragile, while Tolstoy's Anna Karenina portrays love's power to both uplift and destroy. Rumi, the great Sufi mystic poet, transforms love into a spiritual path that leads us closer to God. Together, these voices invite us into a conversation not just about what love is, but about what it does, how it transforms our existence, our choices, and our stories. As we move through this video, I invite you to reflect on how these perspectives resonate with your own experiences. Love is not just a private feeling, it is a force that structures how we live and who we become. It drives art, religion, philosophy, politics, and even science in ways that few other human experiences can match. At the same time, love is intensely personal, shaping our deepest joys and our most painful wounds. Plato once remarked that love compels us toward what is beautiful and eternal, hinting at its power to move us beyond ourselves. Christianity describes love as the greatest virtue. Faith, hope, and love abide, but the greatest of these is love, reminding us that it is not just an emotion but a moral compass. Buddhism encourages us to practice metta, or loving kindness, as a universal compassion that softens suffering for both self and others. Simone de Beauvoir challenges us to resist turning love into possession, urging instead that we see love as a project of mutual growth. Kierkegaard's philosophy insists that love, when chosen with faith, can be the foundation of an authentic life. Literature reinforces this multiplicity. Tolstoy demonstrates through Anna Karenina how love can both liberate and entrap. Shakespeare insists in his sonnets that love defies time itself. Rumi teaches that love is a flame consuming the self in order to find divine union. These traditions and voices remind us that love is never neutral. It always has direction, intention, and consequence. Whether it inspires sacrifice, devotion, rebellion, or creativity, love continually shapes the human story. And by asking whether love is a feeling, a choice, or a story, we are ultimately asking, what does it mean to live well, and what makes life worth living? Many people first experience love as a feeling, an intense rush of affection, attraction, or passion. Feelings of love can inspire poetry, music, and acts of great sacrifice, but they can also lead to jealousy, pain, and despair. Plato, in his Symposium, describes eros as a powerful longing that begins in desire but points toward something higher, hinting that feelings may be only the beginning of love's ladder. Aristotle, in contrast, saw love in friendship, philia, as rooted not only in pleasure but also in virtue, suggesting that true love requires shared goodness. Religions, too, offer perspectives. Christianity distinguishes between eros, philia, and agape, insisting that divine agape is not merely feeling but unconditional love that transforms. Buddhism might see romantic passion as impermanent, urging practitioners to cultivate compassion that does not fade with moods. In Hinduism, feelings of bhakti or devotion channel emotional intensity into spiritual elevation, illustrating that emotions of love can reach beyond the self. Literature captures this intensity vividly. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet immortalizes youthful passion, both beautiful and tragic. Emily Dickinson's poetry treats love as both ecstasy and torment, showing the duality of feelings. Tolstoy's Anna Karenina portrays the consuming power of love, illustrating both its allure and its destruction. Even modern psychology often views love as an evolutionary adaptation, an emotion binding people together for survival and reproduction. Yet, if love is only a feeling, what happens when the feeling fades? Feelings are fleeting, unstable, and easily swayed. This makes many philosophers argue that love cannot simply be reduced to an emotion, it must be something more enduring. And so, we ask, are feelings the spark of love, or just the beginning of its story? Some traditions argue that love is not primarily about how we feel, but about the choices we make. Søren Kierkegaard, in Works of Love, argued that love is rooted in commitment and responsibility, even when feelings fade. He believed that true love is sustained by will, by a deliberate decision to care for the other. Simone de Beauvoir similarly rejected romantic myths of fate, insisting that authentic love is built when two free individuals commit to growing together. Aristotle saw deep friendship as a choice to pursue virtue side by side, reinforcing the idea that love flourishes when partners actively choose one another. Christianity echoes this through the covenant of marriage, where vows signify commitment not dependent on emotions, but on faithful promises. Buddhism's emphasis on compassion also frames love as practice, something cultivated daily through mindful choices. In Hindu thought, dharma, the duty to act rightly, often guides relationships, binding individuals beyond passion alone. Literature also supports this view. Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice highlights love not as blind passion, but as the outcome of thoughtful recognition and respect. Tolstoy's later works stress the moral and spiritual discipline of sustaining love, even amidst suffering. Shakespeare's sonnets often reveal love as a bond tested over time, suggesting endurance as central. Rumi's mystical poetry insists love is a devotion, a surrender of will, a conscious path chosen again and again. In psychology, too, love is seen as less about fleeting chemistry and more about daily practices of care, sacrifice, and loyalty. To frame love as a choice elevates it from impulse to moral action, asking us, are we willing to love even when it is hard? And perhaps this, more than passion, reveals the depth of our humanity. Another perspective suggests that love is neither just a feeling nor simply a choice, but a story we construct. Humans are storytelling creatures. We make sense of our lives by weaving events into narratives. Philosopher Paul Ricoeur argued that identity itself is a narrative, and love often fits into this framework. Simone de Beauvoir cautioned that myths of eternal love can distort relationships, but she also acknowledged that stories give meaning. In literature, this is clear. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet live on not just because of their passion, but because their story has been retold for centuries. Rumi's verses create a story of longing that transcends human boundaries, turning love into a cosmic drama. Tolstoy's novels present love as a moral narrative, asking whether the story we build is destructive or ennobling. Christianity frames love as part of a divine story, from creation to redemption, where believers participate in God's eternal narrative. Hindu epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata weave tales of love and duty, showing how stories preserve cultural values. Buddhism warns that clinging to stories can lead to suffering, reminding us that narratives of love can liberate or entrap. Modern psychology reinforces this, with researchers like Dan McAdams studying how couples tell shared stories that strengthen bonds. Love as a story highlights how memory, meaning, and imagination sustain connection beyond fleeting passion or daily choices. But stories can also be dangerous. Idealized romances can distort reality and set impossible standards. Literary works like Wuthering Heights warn how destructive narratives can become. Thus, to ask if love is a story is to ask, are we authors of our relationships or characters swept along by tales larger than ourselves? Religious traditions have always treated love as central to human existence. Christianity describes love as agape, the highest virtue, reflecting God's unconditional love for creation. Jesus' command to love your neighbor as yourself elevates love to an ethical and spiritual principle. Hinduism emphasizes bhakti, or devotion, where love of the divine becomes the path to liberation, transcending ordinary attachment. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's struggle is resolved through love of Krishna, showing how devotion clarifies duty and meaning. Buddhism speaks of metta, loving kindness, and unconditional goodwill extended to all beings, beyond desire or attachment. Judaism speaks of chesed, loving kindness, that sustains covenant relationships with God and with others. Islam emphasizes divine mercy and compassion, with the Sufi tradition especially portraying love as the soul's longing for union with God. Each of these traditions treats love not only as emotion, but as a spiritual practice and a path to transcendence. In literature, these religious currents inspire countless works. Dante's Divine Comedy places love at the center of salvation. Rumi's poetry transforms love into a mystical flame, and Dostoevsky explores love as the ultimate moral test in The Brothers Karamazov. Philosophically, thinkers like Kierkegaard saw religious love as the highest form, love that demands faith and surpasses human reasoning. These diverse traditions remind us that love is not merely personal, it has cosmic, ethical, and transcendent dimensions. And in confronting love through religion, we see its power not just to bind humans together, but to connect us to the divine. Philosophy has long treated love as one of its most difficult and essential problems. Plato in the Symposium describes love as a ladder, starting in physical desire, ascending to intellectual companionship, and finally reaching the contemplation of beauty itself. Aristotle sees love in friendship, where true affection arises when two people wish the good for one another. Kierkegaard, writing in Works of Love, insists that love is not a matter of fleeting feelings, but of duty and responsibility, an act of the will before God. Simone de Beauvoir highlights how myths of love can enslave individuals, yet she also points to love as a project of mutual freedom and recognition. Nietzsche, though skeptical of conventional love, saw in passion the raw power of life's affirmation, challenging us to embrace its danger. Religious philosophy deepens these questions. Augustine wrote of divine love as the restless heart's only true rest, while Thomas Aquinas described charity as the highest form of love, binding human and divine. Literature reflects these philosophical currents. Shakespeare's sonnets question time and permanence, while Tolstoy dramatizes the ethical demands of love in his novels. Rumi transforms philosophy into poetry, teaching that love annihilates the ego in order to discover truth. Modern psychology adds another layer, analyzing attachment styles and the role of choice in sustaining love. In each perspective, love is both universal and unique. A passion, a duty, a virtue, a danger, a liberation. To study philosophy of love is to study ourselves, our capacity for both selflessness and selfishness, and our longing for meaning through another. And so, philosophy keeps asking, is love our greatest weakness or our greatest strength? Writers across time have captured love in its many forms, ecstatic, tragic, and transformative. Shakespeare's plays, from Romeo and Juliet to Much Ado About Nothing, portray love as both passion and comedy, destiny and folly. Jane Austen, in Pride and Prejudice, depicts love as a process of growth, where pride, misunderstanding, and choice shape the path to genuine partnership. Emily Dickinson's poems wrestle with the intensity of longing, sometimes elusive, sometimes eternal, treating love as both salvation and haunting. Tolstoy's Anna Karenina shows love's consuming force, where passion collides with society's expectations, revealing both liberation and destruction. In contrast, his War and Peace presents love as moral endurance and partnership, shaping lives against the backdrop of history. Dante's Divine Comedy places love at the center of salvation, with Beatrice symbolizing divine guidance. Rumi's mystical poetry presents love as an ecstatic journey to God, showing how earthly affection mirrors cosmic longing. The Song of Songs in the Hebrew Bible elevates romantic love with sacred imagery, suggesting passion itself can reflect the divine. Literary modernists like Virginia Woolf explored love's subtler dimensions, intimacy, companionship, and memory, as sources of meaning. Even today, novels and films continue to wrestle with whether love is a fleeting passion or enduring story. Literature makes love larger than life, yet also intimate, rooted in the struggles of ordinary people. In doing so, it reminds us that love is both personal and universal. Each story offers a mirror, asking us to reflect on the roles we play in our own loves. Love's power lies not only in joy, but in its capacity to wound. To love deeply is to risk loss, rejection, or betrayal. Kierkegaard warned that love involves sacrifice and vulnerability, making suffering almost inevitable. Simone Weil, a 20th-century mystic and philosopher, saw love as inseparable from affliction, arguing that attention to another's suffering is the highest form of compassion. In literature, this theme is profound. Wuthering Heights shows how love intertwined with obsession can destroy lives. Shakespeare's tragedies, Othello or Romeo and Juliet, demonstrate how passion can end in devastation. Even religious traditions recognize love's suffering. Christianity's symbol of divine love is the crucifixion, where God's love is revealed through pain and sacrifice. In Buddhism, attachment to love brings suffering, but compassion transforms that suffering into liberation. Hindu epics reveal love's trials. Rama and Sita's story in the Ramayana shows devotion tested by exile and hardship. Rumi often wrote of longing as a sweet pain, the wound of separation that makes reunion with the divine sweeter. In psychology, attachment theory explains how the fear of loss intensifies the bond, making suffering an inseparable part of love. Yet many argue suffering gives depth, making love more than surface delight. Without the shadow of sorrow, love may remain shallow, untested. The paradox of love is this: in embracing suffering, we find a deeper joy. And so, suffering is not love's opposite, but one of its most profound teachers. Philosophers and writers have long debated whether love liberates or enslaves. Simone de Beauvoir argued that authentic love allows both partners to remain free subjects, not objects to be possessed. True love, for her, means willing the other's freedom, not binding them. In contrast, many stories show how love can entrap, consuming individuality in the name of devotion. Nietzsche warned that passion could enslave the will, making love a form of weakness. In religious traditions, however, love often appears as liberation. In Christianity, Augustine wrote, "Love and do what you will," suggesting love fulfills freedom by aligning the will with goodness. Buddhism frames compassion as liberation from selfish desire, a freedom that arises through love for all beings. Hindu traditions of bhakti often describe surrender to divine love as the highest freedom, a release from ego and worldly attachment. In literature, Austen's heroines often struggle to balance love with independence, seeking partnerships that respect their autonomy. Shakespeare's characters, by contrast, often lose freedom in love, swept away by forces beyond control. Modern psychology also weighs in, noting that healthy relationships foster individuality, while unhealthy ones collapse into dependency. The question remains, is love freedom's fulfillment or its end? Perhaps love demands paradox, binding us to another, yet freeing us through connection. If freedom means isolation, then maybe love is the freedom to be fully human together. Mortality shapes how we love, and love shapes how we face mortality. The awareness that our lives are finite makes our attachments urgent and precious. Philosophers like Heidegger spoke of being toward death, where authenticity emerges when we recognize our finitude. In that light, love becomes a way of affirming existence against the silence of nothingness. Literature often explores this tension. Shakespeare's sonnets claim love can outlast marble and gilded monuments, suggesting poetry grants immortality. Dante's love for Beatrice transcends death, guiding him through paradise. Tolstoy's characters in The Death of Ivan Ilyich reveal how love, neglected in life, becomes essential at the threshold of death. Religious traditions echo this. Christianity promises that love never fails and envisions eternal communion beyond death. Hinduism sees love and devotion as binding souls across lifetimes in cycles of reincarnation. Buddhism tempers this by teaching that clinging leads to suffering, yet compassion remains eternal in its reach. Rumi's verses often frame death itself as union with the beloved, transforming mortality into consummation. Psychology, too, suggests love shapes grief. The enduring bond theory proposes that love persists beyond death in memory and ritual. To love, then, is to defy mortality by giving life meaning beyond its limits. Love becomes our answer to death, the final proof that life mattered. The question is not whether love outlives us, but how we live so our love becomes immortal in story, memory, or spirit. Love is not static, it transforms us. Philosophers from Plato to de Beauvoir emphasize how love redefines the self. Plato's ladder of love moves from desire to beauty itself, showing transformation as the essence of love. Kierkegaard saw love as ethical formation, shaping us through responsibility and self-giving. Nietzsche saw in love's passion the chance to affirm life in its raw intensity, transforming weakness into strength. Religious traditions confirm this power. Christianity teaches that divine love transforms sinners into saints. In Hinduism, bhakti elevates the soul, reshaping the self into harmony with the divine. Buddhism teaches that compassion reshapes the mind, dissolving ego in favor of universal care. Literature also reveals love's power to transform. Austen's Elizabeth Bennet grows through her love for Darcy, learning humility and wisdom. In The Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky portrays love as the ultimate power to redeem human cruelty. Rumi's ecstatic poems present love as fire, burning away illusions and revealing truth. Psychology also supports transformation. Love changes brain chemistry, rewires attachment patterns, and can even heal trauma. Yet not all transformation is positive. Obsessive love, as in Wuthering Heights, can consume identity instead of enriching it. The question remains, do we control love's transformation, or does it control us? In either case, love reshapes the story of who we are, binding our growth to the lives of others. For many, love is not only human but transcendent. In Christianity, love is the essence of God. God is love. To love is to participate in divine being. In Sufi Islam, poets like Rumi describe love as the flame that consumes the ego and reveals union with the beloved, who is God. Hindu bhakti traditions portray love as devotion that bridges human and divine, transforming ordinary passion into spiritual liberation. Buddhism, though wary of attachment, still sees compassion as transcendent, revealing enlightenment's boundless embrace. Judaism elevates steadfast love as the covenant binding humanity and God. Philosophers, too, describe love as transcendent. Augustine wrote that human love finds rest only in God, while Aquinas described charity as love perfected in the soul. Literature often takes this path. Dante's love for Beatrice becomes divine vision, while Rumi's poetry turns longing into a mystical path. Even secular writers find transcendence in love. Milan Kundera suggests in The Unbearable Lightness of Being that love offers meaning in an otherwise chaotic world. Psychology echoes this, as experiences of deep connection often evoke awe, wonder, and spiritual language. Whether divine or human, love seems to point beyond itself. It opens a door to transcendence, making the ordinary sacred. In this sense, love may be the closest humans come to touching eternity. We have explored love as a feeling, a choice, and a story, and seen how religion, philosophy, and literature each shape our understanding. Love as a feeling gives passion and intensity, the spark that enlivens human experience. Love as a choice sustains and strengthens, grounding passion in responsibility and daily practice. Love as a story provides meaning, helping us weave our experiences into narratives that outlast fleeting moments. Religious traditions teach that love connects us to the divine, transcending our limitations. Philosophers reveal love as a test of freedom, virtue, and authenticity. Literature immortalizes love's joys and sorrows, reminding us of its beauty and its dangers. Psychology confirms that love is both biological and cultural, wired into our bodies and shaped by our imaginations. None of these perspectives alone is complete. Love is too vast, too mysterious to fit into a single definition. Perhaps the truth lies not in choosing one answer but in holding them all together. Love is a feeling that inspires, a choice that sustains, and a story that gives meaning. It is joy and suffering, freedom and devotion, mortality and transcendence. And above all, love is the question we must each answer with our lives. For those who want to continue reflecting on love, many voices across philosophy, religion, and literature can guide your journey. Erich Fromm's The Art of Loving offers a timeless exploration of love, not as a fleeting passion, but as a skill that can be cultivated. Martha Nussbaum's Love's Knowledge examines how emotions and literature shape our moral understanding, placing love at the heart of ethical life. Simon May's Love, a history traces the evolution of the concept across cultures and centuries. C.S. Lewis's The Four Loves distinguishes affection, friendship, eros, and charity, giving language to different forms of love. Simone de Beauvoir's The Ethics of Ambiguity explores freedom and responsibility within relationships, and of course, Plato's Symposium remains one of the foundational dialogues on love, from desire to transcendence. Religious traditions also offer profound resources. The Song of Songs from the Hebrew Bible presents love as both passionate and sacred. The Christian New Testament's 1 Corinthians 13 elevates love as patient, enduring, and the greatest virtue. The Hindu Bhagavad Gita, especially its bhakti passages, frames love and devotion as a path toward liberation. Literature, too, deepens our insight. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet captures the ecstasy and tragedy of youthful passion. Tolstoy's Anna Karenina reveals love's beauty and its destructive potential. Dante's Divine Comedy elevates love as the very force that guides the soul to salvation. For ongoing conversation, modern media also provides entry points. The podcast Philosophy Bites includes an engaging episode on the question, "What is love?" while On Being with Krista Tippett often features profound discussions on love's mystery and power. Online, the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and the Internet. Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Both have thorough, thoughtful articles on love's many dimensions. Taken together, these works remind us that love is inexhaustible, an idea, a feeling, a practice, and a mystery we must each explore for ourselves. These resources are not final answers, but companions for the journey, inviting us to reflect more deeply on what love means in our own lives. As we reach the end of this exploration, we are reminded that love is one of humanity's most enduring questions. Across time, cultures, religions, and philosophies, it has been seen as passion, duty, story, and salvation. For Plato, love was a ladder leading the soul toward beauty and truth. For Augustine, it was the restless longing of the heart for God. For Kierkegaard, love was not only desire, but an ethical task, an obligation toward the other. In literature, love has inspired countless works, from the tragic intensity of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet to the quiet steadfastness in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Religious traditions remind us of love's sacredness. In Christianity, love is defined as caritas, a selfless charity that binds us to God and each other. In Hinduism, the path of bhakti frames love as devotion that unites the soul with the divine. In Buddhism, compassion, karuṇā, is a universal form of love that transcends attachment, seeking the well-being of all beings. These perspectives suggest that love is not only personal but also cosmic, linking us to something greater than ourselves. Philosophers like Simone insisted that to love is to truly see the other, while Erich Fromm described love as an art requiring discipline, humility, and practice. Meanwhile, contemporary thinkers such as bell hooks emphasize that love must be understood as both a personal act and a political force, capable of transforming individuals and societies. In the end, love resists reduction to a single definition. It is both fleeting and enduring, painful and joyous, fragile and indestructible. It is a choice we make, a story we tell, and a mystery that continually remakes us. To reflect on love is not only to ponder an idea, it is to ask how we want to live, how we want to relate, and what we want to create with the time we are given. So as you leave this conversation, carry the question forward. What does love mean to you? Not in abstraction, but in your life, your relationships, and your story. For in seeking that answer, we not only come closer to love, but perhaps closer to ourselves.